Hello and welcome. I am Sophie Troy and I'm the technical lead of the Elixir team at Vamp. I've been at Vamp for 10 months and as such have been doing Elixir for 10 months also. Previous to this, I was at a large established tech firm using a programming language called TCL. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. It's a language that's almost 30 years old. So coming to Vamp, which is a startup, and moving to such a modern language as Elixir has been an interesting journey. As you heard, I am Australian, and I've travelled 16,000 kilometres on a 25-hour flight to be here today. A little bit about Australia. So Australia is home to 520 species of spiders, the top 3 most venomous snakes in the world, sharks, crocs, and of course, Hugh Jackman. So why come here today at all? So back home, I frequently get asked the question, why Elixir? And I think the best way to answer that question is to show how we have applied Elixir to our real-world business needs at Vamp. So today I'll talk about what is Vamp and what do they do, and then I'll go into Vamp's journey with Elixir, some of the successes and some of the challenges we have faced, why Elixir was the right choice for Vamp, and potentially the right choice for other startups. Finally, I'll talk a little about the Australian Elixir community, and more specifically the scene in Sydney. There'll be time for questions and feedback at the end. So hands up who's using Elixir in production. So quite a few people, but not everyone. So I hope everyone gets something out of the talk today. So Vamp is an Australian startup founded in 2015. We are an influencer and content marketing platform connecting brands to influencers using our tech platform. We want to empower our community of content creators with the technology and resources to help them flourish as professionals. We work with many different brands across a range of industries. We have various offices around the globe, but our tech team is based entirely in Sydney, Australia. Currently, it's a team of 12 people, with just 4 of them Elixir engineers. Next is just a short video to explain a bit more what Vamp does. So how does it all work? So on the left, you can see our dashboard application. And this allows campaign managers to create and manage briefs. It connects them to a global network of influencers for their marketing campaigns. On the right is our mobile application. This allows influencers to apply for and easily manage multiple briefs. Influencers can upload content and easily invoice brands via the app. So behind the scenes, our stack looks like this. First off, the application server written in Elixir. It's an umbrella application consisting of smaller, more function-specific apps. The application server has been designed to scale horizontally as needed. For permanent storage, we have a Postgres database. We also have our dashboard application, which is written using React, Redux, and Apollo. We also have the mobile application, which is written in React Native and also uses Apollo. Both of these interact with the application server using a GraphQL interface. Finally, for an internal Vamp view of the system, we have some admin screens that are written with Phoenix as part of the application server. So now I'll talk about why Elixir was the choice for Vamp, how it helped to build our product, and also some of the challenges we had. So what you saw before is actually version 3 of our platform. Previously, there were 2 prototypes made and released to the world as a proof of concept. Version 1 was written in Ruby on Rails, but it would not provide the scale that Vamp needed. So the decision was made to move to Elixir. Version 2 of the platform was using Elixir with an Ember front end and a JSON API. About a year ago, the decision was made to once again re-architecture. This was to allow the product to scale and improve development times, as the old app had become brittle. Version 3 is where I joined the story. Here it's using Elixir, GraphQL, and React. Once again, Vamp had the opportunity to pick a different language, but they stuck with Elixir. Being new to Elixir myself, I was interested in what drove that decision. So there were a few key factors. And the key thing here is that Vamp is a startup. So we want to be able to grow quickly. We want to bring more brands and influencers onto the platform. Our business model is to connect many users with spikes of usage when notifications go out. As we all know, Elixir is designed to perform well at scale. It also has a proven track record of stability. This is what we wanted. It's also important to be quick to market. Here we needed to focus on delivering business value early. Elixir removes roadblocks by empowering engineers to deliver new features quickly. So how does Elixir help us to do these things? First off, it has a great ecosystem. The ones listed here are all integrated into our Git hooks. These make delivering as a team and maintaining quality code much easier. There is also the growing open source community. I've listed just a few great libraries here. We use many, many more. But all these help you to hit the ground running. Finally, was the decision to move to a GraphQL interface. And this was done fairly easily by utilising the Absinthe library. Here we wanted to improve the developer and user experience. So all these things fed into the decision to stay with Elixir. Now I'll talk about a few of the major components we have built. Rather than deep diving into the technical detail, I'll cover some of the key learnings and experiences we had along the way. First off, was the GraphQL interface using Absinthe. So for those who are not familiar with it, GraphQL is a query language for APIs. There are many benefits to using GraphQL. First is the ability to only request the data you need. It has inbuilt documentation. It is also strongly typed, which helps encourage better design practices. Our experience was an improved developer experience, but most importantly was the improvements in performance. When launching our new application server, it was not possible to also launch the new mobile application at the same time. We could also not control when users would update their mobile apps. This meant we had to re-implement the legacy JSON API the old mobile app was expecting, while we were also implementing the new GraphQL API. This was a unique opportunity to compare the two. From our experience, the GraphQL implementation had reduced code complexity. It also had reduced coding effort. Here we were leveraging the ability of Absinthe to model the data and relationships based on the Ecto models. It was also extensible when we needed. We could easily plug in more complex logic by creating custom resolvers in the rare cases that we needed them. So these factors help make the developer experience better, but more importantly, what was the user experience? So here I have compared the JSON API with the GraphQL API. First off, you can see that the average request time for the GraphQL API is twice as fast. And here I've shown the mobile homepage response size. This is our most frequently accessed page. And just using it as an example, you can see that the response size is 7 times larger for the JSON API. These figures show that there's a significant improvement to the user experience. Another major component of our mobile application is chat. This allows campaign managers to easily communicate with influencers and coordinate campaigns. Vamp was able to implement the chat mechanism entirely using Elixir and Phoenix channels. I will not go into the detail of how to implement chat here, as there are a lot of great examples and resources online. We certainly learnt a lot by utilising these materials. I believe there's also been a great talk here at the conference already. Our challenge was once again supporting old and new mobile apps concurrently. As we migrated, significant improvement had been made to the user and message data models in our schema. The apps now required different message structures for chat. This was quite easy to resolve by utilising Phoenix views to transform the structure of the message payload as needed. Next, I'd like to talk a little about integrations, or as I like to call it, asynchronous, no worries. We integrated with a number of APIs in a very short space of time, either with partners or utility if we needed. Frequently, we want to connect to these third parties without blocking, maintaining that fast user experience. We do this by handling tasks asynchronously. Other languages would have required us to have implemented message queues and task runners. This not only increases the complexity of code, but also of deployment and maintenance. So far, we have been able to do everything we need just using out-of-the-box Elixir, using GenServer, tasks, and agents. For us, this has been one of the real strengths of Elixir. I will touch on just two of the integrations today, Google Ads and Campaign Monitor. So Google Ads is an XML SOAP API. While we were doing the project, we found there was no existing SOAP library for Elixir that met our requirements. So we had to consider our options. First off was to build a library ourselves. This would take significant time and effort. Another approach would be templating, but there were concerns that this would become brittle if the API changed. Another option was to use an existing Erlang SOAP library. Here we could leverage the ability of Elixir to run Erlang code. There were some other factors we needed to consider when making our decision. SOAP is no longer as common as it once was. None of the other services we were using or planned to integrate with were using SOAP. The Google Ads API itself is soon to be deprecated, and they're replacing it with a JSON API. Finally, we are a small team. We have to really focus on what delivers the greatest value to the business. This meant there was not a lot of value in building an Elixir SOAP library at that time. So we went ahead and used the existing Erlang SOAP library, which had been built by Bet365. At a high level, the integration had a few steps. First off, we used the library to auto-generate 2 files for each type of request we needed. These files were based on the WSDL files that Google provided. First off was an HRL file. This was a record file that effectively represents the data structure of the request and response. Second was an Erlang file that would act as an interface to the SOAP library. This step only needed to be done once, and then it became part of our code base. So the flow for an ads request now looks like this. We will receive a request to create an ad from the GraphQL API. This would then utilize our Google module, which implemented Vamp's business rules. The Google module would use the record file to create the data structure that the Erlang interface expects. The interface then calls the SOAP library. The library translates the data into the SOAP structure and sends the request to the external API. The response then follows the same flow back, once again being translated into a structure that Elixir could understand. The integration was challenging. Erlang is definitely difficult to read, but would have taken us longer without the existing library. In preparing for this talk, I revisited this project to refresh my mind and discovered there is now an Elixir SOAP library that would have met our needs. Just 3 months too late for us. My face upon discovering. One of the challenges of Elixir being a young language, it is still developing. Libraries are sometimes not yet available or do not cover your business requirements. Next, I'll talk about our Campaign Monitor integration. So Campaign Monitor is an email tool which provides a RESTful JSON API to automate sending of templated emails from our application. Again, no existing library for Elixir, either officially supported or community supported, existed. Campaign Monitor is a popular product and is used by thousands of businesses, so this was a bit of a surprise. It is an Australian product, so perhaps the small Elixir community in Australia accounts for it. This was a product we were using more and more to improve our interactions with brands and influencers. This seemed a good fit for us to contribute to the Elixir open source community. We have not covered the entire API yet, but we are actively working on it. It's called Campaign Monitor, and you can go check it out. So that was just a few of the major components we have worked on so far. There's much more I could have mentioned, but we haven't finished yet. So what's next for the tech team? Chat 2.0. Vamp want to improve the influencer experience by taking a chat-centric view of the application. This requires a richer version of chat than simple messaging. It involves objects that the user can interact with and action. So again, we went back and looked at our options. Our current solution, which was Elixir and Phoenix channels, a third-party service, or a new option, GraphQL subscriptions. Our current solution was extensible, but there were concerns over creating another complex data structure. When looking at third-party services, they would not provide much more than what we had already implemented ourselves. Finally, GraphQL subscriptions looked like a good fit for us. It would enable us to reuse a lot of the data types we had already built. It was also a better implementation experience for the front-end developers, who would express a preference for dealing with an API rather than dealing directly with sockets. A brief aside on backwards compatibility, or some lessons we learnt while doing this. Again, we need to consider users who do not immediately update their app. We had to come up with a solution for supporting the existing Phoenix channel chat and the GraphQL subscription chat concurrently. Our current approach is to have the GraphQL subscription also trigger a message on the socket. This has highlighted a beginner's mistake we made when structuring our application. Within our umbrella app, we separated the web and GraphQL logic into two applications. Incoming GraphQL requests are accepted by the web app and then handled by the GraphQL code. For the subscription to send a message, it would now require the web app, creating a circular dependency in our application. A more correct approach would have been to have the GraphQL code as a module within our web application. There have been a fair amount of discussion in the Elixir community about the pros and cons of umbrella apps. Certainly, you need to be careful when structuring your code, considering the difference, what is an app versus what is a module. So back to GraphQL subscriptions. So on the left here, we have an example of what our current chat looks like, a simple JSON format. On the right was the enriched chat structure we needed to reach. So while we could have implemented the second using a JSON structure, we would essentially be making a second API again. It is also important that we could already create this structure in our existing GraphQL for pull requests. The only part missing was the real-time socket connection, which is made possible by subscriptions. Moving chat to GraphQL subscriptions once again simplifies and streamlines our system to having a single interface of well-defined data models. Currently, this is only a proof of concept in our staging environment. One of the great things about working for a young team is the opportunity to try new things and experiment. I have talked from a technical perspective about some of the wins and challenges we faced. We had to make choices along the way, either right or wrong. But in talking about Elixir and its benefits, there is an important factor that I haven't yet mentioned, and that is people. Engineers are interested and passionate about Elixir. This reduces frustration and helps maintain motivation. This is really important for a company, as we want to attract and retain the best engineers. I hope this leads nicely into talking about the community in Australia, and specifically the scene in Sydney. So the Elixir community in Australia is small but growing. I got these figures from the Elixir meetup. So there are 5 companies using Elixir in Sydney and a few more in Melbourne. Looking at meetup.com, the Sydney meetup has 530 members, but around 40 turn up regularly to meetings. To put that in perspective, Ruby Sydney has over 2,000 members and React Sydney over 4,000. Of course, there are some benefits to being a small community. When I told the Elixir Sydney meetup that I was coming to Prague to talk to you guys today, they were very supportive of it and excited for me. Here they are saying hello, Prague. Looking more globally, you can see it's a small community, but it is a passionate one. It's a fun fact that Ruby and Elixir almost have the same amount of stars on GitHub now. So a small community means challenges in recruitment. Very few engineers on LinkedIn list Elixir in their skill set. And here I got some figures. So for people in Australia with the following titles, developer or software engineer, who have listed Elixir as a skill or otherwise have it as a word on their profile, it's just 268. Note that if I went through the entire list, the number would probably go down, as not everyone is necessarily experienced in Elixir. They could just mention it as an interest on their profile. Once again, comparing to Ruby on Rails, which has over 3,000, and React has over 5,000. This means Australian companies have to take a broader view for recruitment. Vamp itself has taken a number of approaches. This includes hiring interns from coding boot camps, hiring people with no prior Elixir experience, such as myself, and then training them up as part of the induction. Another key factor is overseas recruitment. Dragos on my team started out doing project work from Stockholm and has since relocated to Australia. For overseas recruitment, there are great resources out there. One example is the Tech Life Sydney website, which helps potential overseas candidates learn more about moving to Sydney, salary guides, and visa information. You can also check out companies like Vamp on their site and find out more about them. The purpose of this website is to highlight that Sydney has a tech landscape and there are opportunities out there. We need to find that balance of experienced Elixir developers to help teach and mentor newer developers. Just a week ago, I was asked to speak at General Assembly to one of their coding bootcamp classes. We discussed what it was like to work in the tech industry, recruitment and interviewing, and what they might expect. When I discussed the challenges facing us with recruitment, one of the students asked me, if recruitment is so difficult, why pick Elixir? So it's a question we still have to tackle. Part of the solution is to grow the community back home. As such, Vamp is active in the community with the hopes of helping it to grow. Recently, we've contributed in different ways, either speaking at meetups or Jack Marchant on my team was recently a guest of the Elixir Mix podcast. He also has an excellent blog. And of course, me attending this conference today. Recently, Vamp were involved in a panel discussion organised by Lava, another Sydney startup using Elixir. It was held at Academy XI to UX designers and product managers who had never heard of Elixir before. Other great avenues are groups like Women Who Code, where I volunteer when able. The Sydney branch just recently did an Elixir workshop. Events like these help raise the profile of Elixir in the wider tech community. These people can then act as champions of Elixir within their own organisations. Perhaps sometime soon I will see you all again at an Elixir Australia conference. So today I have talked about why Elixir was the right choice for Vamp and potentially the right choice for other startups. Or for companies with existing systems, perhaps it sparks ideas on how Elixir could be introduced to the mix. I also touched on the community, particularly the community in Sydney, and what we are doing to grow it. I welcome thoughts on other ways we can help continue to build the community, either during questions or come speak to me after. Before I open up to questions, I'd just like to thank the team at Vamp, particularly people who contributed data, pictures, and otherwise provided feedback. I would also like to thank the Elixir Sydney Meetup for their support. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Questions? Anybody have questions? Yes.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I'm wondering, how exactly do you onboard people with no Elixir experience in your company?
Yeah, this is very much a work in progress at Vamp. We are, as I said, just a team of 4 people on the Elixir backend. And so we're sort of building up our induction material as we go. So we're utilising a lot of existing resources. They're great, online coding things like Exorcism for interns, and also sort of collecting some of the really some great blogs that highlight key concepts, which may seem strange, but I find they're quite valuable, because sometimes reading about practical examples is much more informative than a textbook. So we have sort of a number of approaches. I think also, getting straight into it, jumping in the deep end, is the most effective way of learning, is to write something for production.
Other questions? Okay, let's have another round of applause for Sophie.